Buongiorno a tutti, sono Jens Hansen, Investor Relations di Hera.
Good
Benvenuti
afternoon,
alla
everybody. My name is
presentazione del
Jens
piano
Hansen,
industriale
Investor
per
Relations at
2024 di
Hera.
Hera.
Welcome to the business
Lascio
plan
subito la
presentation
parola
for Hera
al
Group, and let me
presidente
immediately give the floor to
Christian.
our Executive Chairman, Mr. Christian
Grazie Jens,
Fabri.
buongiorno a tutti anche da parte
Thank you,
mia.
Jens. Good
Come
afternoon, everybody.
tradizione iniziamo questa
As usual,
presentazione
we'll begin our
presentando i
presentation
risultati,
with
le stime dei risultati sul
a
2024
forecast regarding our 2024 results,
visionati nel nostro consiglio di amministrazione. Come
which we went over during our board meeting and which
per quanto
also
riguarda
approved our business plan.
l'EBITDA,
As far as
la nostra
EBITDA is
partecipazione
concerned,
al
our estimates
forecast sul
give
2024
us a
è
forecast for
superiore a
2024,
1
which
miliardo e
is
150
above
milioni di euro. È
1.55
un
billion
risultato
euros,
che consideriamo molto positivo,
a very positive
visto
result, we
anche
feel.
il punto di partenza
Also,
del
given
2023, che
where we started
vedeva la
in
maggiore
2023
crescita della nostra storia di 200
with
milioni rispetto
the
all'anno
best
precedente.
growth in our
Ciò che ha
history, plus
fatto
200
che
million compared to the previous year,
l'andamento di
and
questi
also
risultati
considering the
non
fact that
rilevavano
within these
circa
results,
100
we also
milioni di
included
differenza legata al super
100
eco bonus
million
del
euros for the
passato,
most part linked to the
tenendo
super eco
conto
bonus, which,
della
as you
fine
know,
2023 e
expired
quindi
in
non
late
potuto
2023
fruire
and
nel
which
periodo
therefore could
attuale.
not contribute
I
to
risultati che
2024.
abbiamo
Now,
esaminato
the
insieme sul
results
punto
we
del
looked
primo
over
quarter,
together
ci hanno detto,
on a
ci hanno
quarter by
detto che
quarter
la
basis
nostra crescita
show
organica
that our
era
organic growth
tale da
was such
completamente offsettare la
uh,
mancanza di contributi
and it was able to completely
e
offset
avere uno
the
spazio
expiry of
ulteriore,
that
tant'è che
contribution of
sulla
the
fine
super eco
dell'anno
bonus. So much so, in
abbiamo
fact,
questa
that
crescita
at the end
superiore
of the
agli 100
year we have
milioni,
a growth which is
avendo completamente, diciamo,
over 50
compensato
million euros
il
more
debito
compared to the previous year. Therefore, we
dell'acquisizione del
fully
bonus.
offset
Questi
the
risultati
lack of the
sono
super eco bonus
sicuramente
contribution.
migliori
Now,
anche delle
these
stime
results
di
also
consensus
exceed
che
the
già per
expectations
quanto
of the
riguarda la
consensus
stima dei nostri risultati sono migliori
regarding
del
the
2,5%
forecast for our results.
e molto bene anche la parte
We also did very well
sulla parte finanziaria, perché
from the financial
siamo
standpoint.
in
Our growth
crescita
is
in linea con quella
up
dell'anno
by
scorso, forse
1.5%, and our financial results are
insomma
in line with last year. They're
superiori
below
a
2.6
quelle
times in
sempre
terms of the leverage,
aspettative. Quindi
and they're also
da dove
below
derivano questi
expectations. Now,
risultati? Sono
where do
stati
these results stem
la
from?
prova della capacità di
Well,
questo
in fact, they
gruppo
prove
di
our
essere molto
group's ability
efficace
to be
sulla
very efficient
execution, e
when it
quindi
comes to
questo
execution.
conferma della solidità
And
anche
therefore, these
degli
numbers also
obiettivi che
prove the
avevamo
soundness, the
prefissatoci
strength of the
nel precedente
targets that we had given
forecast.
ourselves in the previous business plan.
Entriamo nel piano industriale
Now,
vero e
moving on
proprio.
to the contents of the business
Confermiamo
plan
la
itself,
strategia. La strategia
we want to
basata
confirm
su
our
tre
strategy.
pilastri
Last year's
fondamentali:
strategy was
il
based
nostro
on
scopo aziendale, che è quello di
three
creare
pillars.
valore
The
condiviso,
first is to
e
create
insomma i
shared
tre
value.
pilastri, li ricorderete,
And
sono
you may
diversi
remember
fra di
that
loro,
these three pillars are
basandosi, focalizzandosi
value
sulla
creation
profittabilità del
with a
business
focus on the
e
profitability of our
una
businesses
buona
uh,
flessibilità
and with a
finanziaria.
good
La
financial flexibility.
sostenibilità
We also want to
intesa
be
come
sustainable.
creazione di valore
We want
sostenibile,
to
e
create
quindi
sustainable
valore
value,
che genera
a value
benefici non
that
solo
can lead to
economicamente estremamente
economic
positivi per
benefits,
quanto riguarda il
but also
raggiungimento dei target
positive
delle
results in
Nazioni Unite
terms
per
of
la sostenibilità.
reaching the UN
Resilienza,
sustainability targets.
il miglioramento della
We want to
resilienza
enhance
è una delle
resilience.
caratteristiche
That is one
che
of
noi
the
abbiamo, intesa in
characteristics we
senso
have
ampio, cioè nella
in a very
capacità di
broad sense.
mantenere
In other
un
words,
portafoglio di business
our
e
business
una gestione dei
portfolio
singoli business
and the way we
che
manage each
presenta
business
pochi impatti rispetto
can
alle
allow us to have
fluttuazioni delle macro sfide
low
esterne.
impacts
Quindi
from
questi sicuramente
external
è uno dei
macro
temi
events.
sui quali
And therefore, that is
stiamo
certainly
svolgendo in questo piano.
one of the main
Adesso
themes
vediamo,
behind the
facciamo un
development of this
focus,
business plan.
diciamo,
Now,
già anticipando un po'
let's
l'output del
start
piano
focusing
industriale,
on some of the
vedere
outputs of the business plan,
come le leve strategiche
and let's
sono
try
state
to
sviluppate.
understand the way in
Vi
which we've
ricorderete il
developed
vecchio
our
piano
strategic
industriale, che
levers. Now, you
prendeva
may
come
remember the
base il
previous business
valore
plan
misurata nella differenza fra
had
ROAS
measured value
e
creation
ROI, che passava dal
by measuring the difference
4%
between the sector's
all'indice
WACC and
esistente.
the
Ecco, questo piano industriale
ROI spread
amplifica l'uscita a
at 370
400
basis
basis point,
points.
quindi
With this business plan, we
incremento
expect to reach
sicuramente
400 basis
migliorativo
points at
rispetto al
the end
piano
of the business plan
precedente,
period, which means that we're improving
evidenziando
compared to the
un
previous business plan.
risanamento di
And we have an
margini di
average
circa l'11%,
TSR over the
con
period equal
un
to
diciamo,
11%,
sostentamento equilibrato sia
with
dalla
a
crescita degli utili che
balanced growth
degli
stemming
indebitamenti.
from
Questo
the
è
growth in
evidente,
earnings
come dopo vedremo,
and also in terms of the average yield, the dividend per share yield, which, as we'll be seeing
Sul tema
later,
della
will
sostenibilità,
improve as
sulla
well.
sostenibilità,
When it comes to
dove
sustainability,
diciamo, focalizziamo i
we
nostri investimenti, il nostro piano di investimento
focus our
diciamo, indirizza
investments
le quattro principali aree che
by
sono la
identifying on
decarbonizzazione,
four main areas, namely
la
decarbonization, circular economy,
digitalizzazione
resilience, and
con
innovation.
diciamo, una forte attenzione
We
a
have a
tutto quello
very
che
strong
porta
focus on
valore sul sostenibile.
everything which
Il
brings value by being sustainable.
96%
Now,
degli investimenti che
96%
sono
of
ammessi nella tassonomia è coerente
our
con la tassonomia europea.
investments are in line with EU
Questo
taxonomy.
cosa ci comporta? Ci
Uh,
comporta una
what that
crescita,
means is that
misuriamo come
we have seen an increase
frutto diciamo, dell'EBITDA dato
in our
dalle
EBITDA,
attività che portano anche benefici in termini di sostenibilità,
which
quindi
also
più dal
offers
52 al
sustainability benefits.
66%.
Therefore,
Come
shared
potete
value goes from 62 to 66% in terms of its penetration in the business plan.
Se veniamo adesso al
Now,
tema
moving on to
del rischio, della gestione del rischio e
the way we
dell'approccio che
manage
abbiamo
risk
nella
and
gestione del
the
rischio,
approach we
qui
have to managing
vedete
risk,
come questo approccio che si
uh,
basa
from this
fondamentalmente
slide,
su diciamo,
you'll notice that
una
our
gestione del
approach
portafoglio multi-utility,
is based on managing a
business
multi-utility and
che
multi-business
continuiamo a sviluppare
portfolio,
in maniera equilibrata,
a portfolio
ma
we're
questa è una
continuing to
gestione
develop in a
sia del
balanced way,
business che
but it's also brought about by the way we manage each and
dei
every business,
progetti, dallo schema tariffario
uh,
rispetto alle
even
macro,
the
con
ones which
grande
aren't protected
attenzione
by tariff
agli
schemes
impatti
vis-a-vis
degli
the macros,
investimenti.
with a
In
very
particolare
strong
abbiamo
attention
impatti
to external
relativamente al
impacts.
tema dell'inflazione, dei tassi di
We're not seeing
interesse,
impacts from
o
inflation, from
impatti,
interest
come avete
rates,
visto durante la crisi
as you
energetica,
saw during the energy
sul
crisis.
cambiamento dei prezzi
We
energetici,
don't see impacts
facendo
stemming
ormai
from
tutti
the
questi
change in
anni
energy prices. As far as climate
all'ultravicinanza dei
change is
territori,
concerned,
eventi
even in the
climatici
territories we
molto
operate in recent years, we've had to deal with
impattanti
very
senza diciamo, interrompere
significant
il servizio
climate
ai
events
clienti e senza
without ever
danneggiare
stopping the service we
internazionalmente
offer to our customers and
l'ordine
without ever
esistente. Sul
damaging
tema
excessively our
dell'andamento
plans.
dell'economia, quindi della ciclicalità
When it comes
economica,
to
anche qui
economic
insomma, per come
cyclicality,
gestiamo i
even
business e per le
here,
posizioni
due to the
di
way in which we
vantaggio
manage our business
competitivo
and given the
su questi
competitive
business,
advantage we have
abbiamo
in our businesses,
impatti negligible su tutta l'attività. Il
uh,
nostro, come
we
sapete, è un
see a very
settore
negligible impact on our
molto
businesses.
frammentato,
Uh,
in questo
as you know, we
vediamo
also
più che un
operate in
rischio
very
un'opportunità,
fragmented
perché
markets,
negli anni, come sapete,
which is an
abbiamo
opportunity rather than a risk for
consolidato
us. Because as you
molte
know,
aziende
over the
all'interno del
years, we
nostro
have
percorso di
consolidated
crescita.
plenty of
Su tutti
companies in our
i vincoli,
growth
si incariva dalla
process.
regolazione europea sugli ESG,
When it comes
qui
to
diciamo, vediamo più
ESG
un'opportunità che un
and EU
rischio.
regulations, even here,
Siamo
it's more of
stati
an opportunity
fra
than
i
a risk
primi
since we
a
were
considerare questa
one
come
of the
modello
front
di
runners
business e oggi
in
traiamo
considering
benefici da
ESG
questo
as a
approccio
business
che
model, and we're
ha
now
le
benefiting from
radici
that
molto
approach,
profonde nel
which has
passato.
very deep roots in our past.
Adesso entriamo più
Now,
specificatamente
moving
nei
on more
conti
specifically
dell'azienda per quanto
to
riguarda
some
l'EBITDA,
figures
partiamo
regarding
diciamo, dal
EBITDA.
comprendere le dinamiche
And let's
dell'EBITDA.
begin
Abbiamo
by
fatto
looking at
riferimento
some of
al
its details.
2023
In this slide,
senza il
we're
contributo
referring
del
to
super eco bonus,
2023
naturalmente
without the
questa
contribution of
contribution
the Super Eco bonus, which has
la
expired.
stiamo già compensando e quindi
We're already
è tolta
offsetting
dall'assoluto.
that
Cosa
expiry,
vediamo?
therefore it's
Vediamo
no
una
longer
crescita
part of our
strutturale
references.
di
And what we see
475
is a
milioni
structural growth
che
worth
evidenzia un CAGR del
475 million
7%
with a
che
CAGR
si
worth
basa su
7%.
due grossi pilastri
All of this
economici
is based on
storici
two
che sono
main
quello della
pillars,
crescita
the
organica,
traditional
quindi
ones.
diciamo
Organic
l'attività
growth on the
sulla
one
quale
hand,
noi generiamo la
which is
maggior
the
parte dei
activity that we
contribuzioni,
generate most
al
of our
quale si
contribution from.
aggiunge il
And to
contributo
that,
degli
of course,
M&A
we have to add
con
M&A, which
come al solito
contributes
circa 100 milioni.
uh,
Questa
with roughly
dimensione di
100 million.
contributo
And
corrisponde
this
alla media
amount
che noi in 5
is, in
anni
fact,
riusciamo a
the
portare
average of what we're
come
able to achieve
valore
over the 5-year period.
inserendolo nel nostro
That is
piano
the
di
value we
crescita.
tend to
E quindi
include in our
diciamo
growth
quello che
plan.
in un mercato molto
And therefore, in a
frammentato
very
cerchiamo di
fragmented
fare,
market,
perché
this is what we
tutte le
expect to
settimane
achieve.
valutiamo una serie di
Each and every
dossier,
week, of course, we
molti
look
li
over
scartiamo,
plenty of
altri li
files.
portiamo avanti e
Many are
come
scrapped,
ben
some
sapete
we focus on.
di operazioni ne
Uh,
facciamo tutti i
and as you
giorni.
know, we conclude M&A
Immaginando
transactions
e
every year.
diciamo, costruendo questa crescita
Now,
possiamo
by building this
tranquillamente
growth,
trascurare il
uh,
contributo
we can obviously consider the opportunities from the market, and we can choose to ignore the last resort market tenders, which, as you know, happen every year. In our business plan, we tend to include only the things which are visible. And since these last resort market tenders have happened every 2 years, we decided to ignore them for the time being. This is a conservative approach, of course. Certainly, we wouldn't be able to achieve the results we had in 2023. We had the energy crisis back then, and we had many customers who had lost their suppliers. And therefore, we saw a very high growth in volumes and broader margins compared to what we had seen traditionally in that business, which brings us to a 1.7 billion euro target at the end of the business plan period. And as far as EBIT is concerned, we're expecting a further growth. And we'll be seeing in a few slides that our target is to continue to increase the profitability of our business. And of course, when it comes to measuring ROI, our goal is to focus while we go down the lines with a more intense growth. And we'll see that in a more intense way in the EBIT CAGR. We'll be seeing the major benefits we'll be seeing, also including less provisions compared to the past. That is also the result of energy prices, which are lower compared to the ones we've seen in recent years. And this, of course, allows us to have broader growth and broader strength, broader solidity as far as EBITDA is concerned. This year, we decided to add a slide because, as you saw yesterday, we signed an agreement regarding an M&A transaction, a consolidation transaction in the multi-utility business. IMAG is a miniature Hera, basically. They are located on the border with the Modena province, and we went up from a 25% stake that we already had in the company to a 41% stake. Now, the important thing to note is that in this phase, we are taking over the industrial management of the company. The meaning of this is that, given the fact that we operate in neighboring territories and that we have the same business portfolio, we'll be able to obtain the maximum level of synergies with management control and with consolidation of the company. This isn't a form of growth that we paid for in cash. There was no cash out. This is a transaction that was agreed upon with an asset swap. We gave them 45% of a company we're setting up, a joint venture that we're setting up that will include all of the water assets in the Modena province. This transaction will allow us to obtain synergies, of course. We'll be able to rationalize the water network between the network managed by IMAG and the network that we manage in the province. And therefore, there will be plenty of space to obtain synergies compared to the traditional ones we have in management and in cost-cutting activities. Now, how did we evaluate the two companies? Well, the IMAG evaluation was worth 7 times the multiple, and the evaluation of the assets and the company, the joint venture we're setting up, was made at 1.2 times the RAB, since this is an entity that will deal with the water service exclusively. Let's have a look at the IMAG numbers. Their 2023 EBITDA is worth some 60 million, with a target in its standalone plan to 2028 worth 77 million, which can be developed through the development of a portfolio which is more regulated than ours. Roughly 50% of their contribution comes from networks, 20% from waste, and 30% from the energy business, with a financial position at the end of 2023 worth 210 million euros. Some of the parameters and industrial KPIs that can give you an idea. The RAB in networks is 210 million. The waste volume managed are equal to 200,000 tons, and 230,000 customers are the ones managed by Gas, which is the IMEG supply company. We did not include IMEG's figures in the business plan. We have kept the 100 million euro EBITDA target as far as M&A is concerned. Obviously, this transaction gives us a very good visibility upfront of our very positive M&A levels. Let's move on to the structured growth with the business by business breakdown. Our goal is to have a balanced portfolio. At the end of the business plan period, you'll see that all businesses contribute to EBITDA by 1/3, and the growth we're seeing in this business plan is also very balanced, both in terms of network and waste and energy. The main growth drivers are very straightforward, also in terms of their impact. When it comes to networks, the RAB enhancement linked to the investment plan we'll be seeing shortly is one of the drivers. Indeed, the WACC increase is another one of the drivers, and this growth, of course, refers to 2023 year-end figures with a major growth, which also already gave us visibility on the upcoming years. As far as waste is concerned, in this business, we want to expand our assets, our industrial assets. We are leaders, and we want to further strengthen our leadership. And at the same time, we also want to develop the market by leveraging on our competitive advantages. In waste, we will continue looking at M&A opportunities besides what IMEG already contributes to that growth. In energy, we have a 177 million euro growth based on three main axes. The first is recovering the shaping costs, which had added costs in 2023 by reducing the group's margins. And this recovery is an optimization of costs, which is something that we have already achieved in 2024. Then we also have a focus on commercial development and taking full advantage of our SDG customers. But there are also other things, as we'll be seeing later. So we'll continue to grow with a balanced portfolio, and that is one of the reasons behind our constant growth track record for the past 20 years. Now, let's move on to 4 slides that give us a flavor of our capital allocation strategy, investments. Why do we have 4 slides? Well, because when we want to define how much to invest and what to invest in, we worked by taking 3 main goals into account. The first target was to continue having a balanced growth in our business portfolio. The second target was to continue having profitability. And in fact, we wanted to increase the profitability of our business portfolio in an integrated way. The third reason was to continue having a good level of financial flexibility so as to be able to take advantage of any possible market opportunities, both for organic growth and for M&A. We decided to have a net investment plan, which don't consider the contributions we receive externally from the recovery plan or from other institutions, and that accounts to 4.6 billion. That also includes 500 million euro contributions. And there's also a value that we have embedded in the figures that we're presenting to you, because all of the initiatives that are financed by external contributions, whatever they are used on the free market, they offer a full contribution, whereas on the regulated market, they offer a contribution in terms of efficiency and operations. Now, let's see the way in which these 4.6 billion are going to be allocated in our investment plan. 2.2 billion, less than 50%, will be focused on the maintenance of our infrastructure, whereas 2.4 billion will be focused on development. And in order to maintain this portfolio balance, we allocated 60% of our development to the regulated business, because 60% is roughly the amount of our invested capital which refers to those businesses. And therefore, more specifically, 1.3 billion to networks, and then a part goes to the waste collection service. The other significant portion of the capex is dedicated to the development of market businesses, and that includes the liberalized part of waste and energy. The next slide gives us a flavor of where our financial resources come from and how they'll be allocated. It gives us an idea of how we'll be managing our portfolio mix. Now, let's begin from the more general numbers. After having paid for the maintenance investments, we have an overall free cash flow for the three businesses worth 3 billion. 2.4 billion will be devoted to development, and the remaining part will be financing most of the dividends we'll be distributing. As for how did we manage the business policies? Well, in the waste business, they lead to 900 million in terms of free cash flow for the business plan period. 700 million were allocated to development. But in reality, if we consider that this is where most of the M&A comes in, from the financial standpoint, we also have to consider the debt included stemming from M&A, which means that we reinvest 100% of the cash generated through waste. Energy. Energy is a capital-intensive business. It generates a major part of our overall free cash flow, roughly 50% of it. But since it's a capital-intensive business, even when it comes to development, it has a lower investment requirement. Therefore, if we don't consider the development investments, we have 1 billion euros, which we used mostly to speed up our growth in the networks business. In fact, if we move on to networks, we'll see how this business area will generate a 700 million free cash flow. But to this area of business, we've allocated 1.3 billion for development. Therefore, the fact that we have a multi-business integrated portfolio allows us to grow more quickly, even in regulated businesses, compared to the free cash flow that it would generate independently. And this, of course, as we'll be seeing, will lead to a 36% growth in RAB compared to the beginning of the business plan. Another one of our goals is to increase the profitability of our portfolio. You may remember that our strategic development axis focuses on creating value, and therefore, from the industrial standpoint, measuring this value creation is linked to ROI and is spread with WACC. ROI moves from 8.7% to 9.5% with an 80 basis point growth, and it is supported both by the mix of the invested capital in each business, but it also stems from the growth and profitability that we developed within the businesses, especially when it comes to networks or waste collection. We have a regulatory return, which is growing. And when it comes to waste treatment, we have a major growth and profitability, which is linked to the two policies that Orazio will be explaining, which refer to the growth of our asset portfolio and the growth of our commercial portfolio by leveraging on our characteristics and our competitive advantage in terms of the assets we have and in terms of our offers on the circular economy. Energy supply, typically it has a 20% profitability. It's decreasing slightly, despite the fact that we did not consider the last resort markets here. And this reduction is also linked to a normalization effect in terms of margins, also vis-a-vis some of the elements that we were beginning with. The other important element in this slide is that not only are we increasing ROI, but we're also including the net invested capital by 2 billion, from 7.7 billion to 9.7 billion. And therefore, the space to create value lies in the ROI difference and the fact that we added a further 2 billion of invested capital to a 9.5% ROI. And with this last slide, we move on to our capital allocation choices, which show where we stand in terms of our leverage. At the end of the business plan, we'll stand at 2.8 times, which gives us a further potential growth in terms of leverage we can use compared to our historic numbers. It's plus 0.5, which gives us the possibility of further growing to have a sizable financial flexibility, which we can then be used for any potential opportunities linked both to external growth, with the goal of obviously having a growth that can be integrated with our businesses, and which could lead to synergies in terms of costs and further development. And we also have to make sure that we're focused on our core businesses and the territories neighboring ours, or with a focus on organic growth elements, because in this business plan, we have inserted projects that have already been authorized, and therefore, if further authorizations are received, we can look into them with our leverage. In a nutshell, we've seen our strategic paths, we've seen the evolution of our EBITDA and how we will choose to allocate our investments. And now we'll look at the effects on the bottom line. First of all, let's begin by EPS. Earnings per share have a 6% CAGR. They have improved compared to the ones in the previous business plan, which proves that the target we had of bringing the highest possible level of value to the bottom line and to improve it compared to the previous business plan is more than obvious from this slide. 2024 is a year that we are ending in a very positive way, both from the economic standpoint and from the financial standpoint. And along with an improvement of the earnings we'll be making in the next few years, made it very easy for us to offer a guidance to our board of directors as far as dividends are concerned. And we expect to increase the dividend we'll be paying in June this year by 7% compared to what we offered in 2024. This is the growth that we applied to the entire years of the business plan. We've increased the floor all the way up to 17 cents in 2028.
Adesso entriamo in questa logica di drill down progressivo sulle determinanti.
For this drill down approach, let's now go into the growth drivers, beginning with energy. We are now stably the third largest player on the Italian market. We have a 4.7 million users, customers, and we have excellent feedback from our customers once we acquire them. Last year, we were awarded 7 lots, as you may remember, in the SDG sector. Now, the main asset in this sector is, of course, the evolution of our customer base. On the left-hand side of the slide here, you have an idea of our track record. We moved from 700,000 customers to 3.5 million customers in 2022, and we're now up to 4.7 million customers in September 2024, with an increase in customers, the effect of which was the increase of our market share. Now, in a market in which the number of customers is stable, the fact that we had such a large growth in our customer base allowed us to move up from a 1% market share to 8% in our position, and we have consolidated our presence as the third player on the market. Now, what were the competitive advantages and strategic levers that allowed us to achieve these levels? Well, the churn rate we have is lower compared to the market average. That was certainly one of the elements which allowed us to increase our customer base and to achieve a major level of value creation, because most of our commercial growth turns into a growth in customer base, not offsetting those customers who left us to move to other players. Now, what are the recipes that allowed us to get here? Well, first of all, the multi-business management of customers. When it comes to energy, of course, or gas and electricity, but in territories in which we have all four businesses, we can offer them all four services. And this has an advantage for CRM and for billing. It's also an advantage for customers, and it gives us a competitive advantage. Now, in our growth, we have always focused on a growth that could intensify our presence on local territories instead of achieving small market shares in a broader territory. And this has allowed us to be very efficient in our commercial development, but it's also allowed us to benefit from the local relationship we have and the local presence we have. And we intensify our efforts. We have a physical presence. We have physical shops. And we also have an approach to the local institutions, which allow us to be credited to operate in that territory. Now, the choice we made of being very local, very locally oriented, has to also be considered with the scale we've achieved, which allows us to be very competitive in terms of costs and very efficient in terms of the services we offer our customers, and in terms of the CRM we offer. We have a network made up of over 200 physical shops, and we also have digital shops. And customers have a very high perception when it comes to the quality of the service we offer. In fact, it's difficult to exceed what we already achieved. I've already mentioned that we have a strong local penetration. These are the main drivers that have allowed us to grow. Now, the other element that we can see on this slide is our EBITDA story, the red line you can see on the graph. The growth of EBITDA was mainly linked to the growth of our customer base. You'll see that there is a very strong correlation between the two curves on the graph. And this correlation is entirely independent from the price trend. Our EBITDA moves with the customer increase and is not impacted by price fluctuation. Based on all this, based on our competitive advantage and the industrial relations we've set up, let's see what we have in mind for the business plan. On July 1st, as I was saying, we added a further 1 million customers in STG. We went up from 3.8 million customers to 4.7 million customers overnight. That was the effect of the tender we were awarded. And it also means that the focus over the next few years, as we're seeing at the business plan, is a focus on managing this major growth. And we want to replace those customers who will naturally choose another supplier during the SDG market. But we also want to offset the last resort market who will be looking for an adequate commercial development. Furthermore, in our 4.5 million customer target, we've also included the 200 customers that will be receiving mid-year with the closure of the IMAG transaction. Therefore, we'll continue to leverage on our competitive advantage so that we can consolidate our customer base over the next few years. Now, let's see the effects of the strategy on margins. If you look at the EBITDA, the structural growth we saw earlier was worth 177 million. And it allows us to more than offset the expiry of the last resort markets, which we did not include in the 2028 figures to be conservative. This is a growth which is supported by 5 axes. One of the most significant contributions comes from the recovery in shaping costs. Therefore, in 2023, price fluctuation led to a growth in shaping costs, and therefore, with the same price paid for the customers, our margins were reduced. Now, this volatility has decreased, but what we did especially was we implemented a more risk-adverse policy, also in terms of shaping costs, and therefore, even were a similar phenomenon to repeat itself, we would have a lower impact. And therefore, this part of our margin recovery is a major portion of the growth we want to achieve. We also have a part which is linked to commercial activities. We have to be able to profit from our growth in SDG. We have to be able to manage our commercial activities, which allow us to offset SDG customers leaving us, which gives us another piece of our structural growth. Then we have value-added services. In 2022 and 2023, we had a strong growth in VASs, but that was a context in which the Super Eco Bonus made it easier to offer these services. Now that the Super Eco Bonus has expired, what we're left with is our customers' strong desire to decarbonize their consumption and to reduce energy costs by reducing consumption. And this leads us to all of the proposals, all the offers we have, and that we want to further enhance for the business plan in all segments, from the retail sector to major corporations to condominiums and the public administration. And we want to work both on public lighting and on efficiency and building management. And as far as companies are concerned, we want to become a partner with them. We want to be the energy partner for these customers. We want to be the ones who manage energy in their production sites so that companies can focus on their core business, leaving it up to us to focus on our core business with long-term partnerships with them. When it comes to generation, we are continuing in our growth in renewables, especially in the photovoltaic sector. And we're doing this very carefully. We are focusing on origination, which means that we want to hold on to the entire value of the value chain. And we also want to continue improving the relations with our customers. We want to work on consumption centers. We want to make sure that this production is offered to our proximity customers so that we can protect them from price volatility when you are exposed to market prices, especially in a future in which we'll have an increasing amount of renewables, and therefore the hours in which these prices are set lower levels can be larger and with a more negative impact, and therefore we want to stabilize the profitability of this activity. In a nutshell, therefore, this growth is supported by different levers which can give us a significant contribution and which show that compared to 2023, we've had an increase in our customer base by 700,000, which is one of the drivers which contributes to our organic development. Last year, during our business plan presentation, we had announced that we had acquired 1 million customers. We had explained the model to you. And now let me just tell you where we stand 1 year down the line and after 6 months in which we've been managing this portfolio. You may remember that we had chosen to acquire these customers by offering tariff discounts, which will lead to a monthly cost to serve without any upfront payments. Typically, you pay your commercial structures. In M&A, you pay upfront when you buy a company or their customers. In this case, we want to leave part of our margin to the customers with the awareness that beginning on the 1st of April 2027, all these customers would automatically move to free market offers with new services and new activities and with margin levels that would be consistent with these new offers. And our evaluation of the stage was that this was going to be an investment. It would be consistent with our sector's ROI, and these were the bidding hypotheses we made. What we discovered over these first 6 months is that things are even better than expected, because what we're seeing is that customers are much more loyal than we thought they would be. And the relationship we've set up with these customers over the past 6 months is one which leads them to being very satisfied with our service, with excellent quality, with no problems in terms of receiving their billings, with terms of CRM. We checked with them to verify their data. And therefore, in just a matter of months, the awareness in our new customer base is better than we expected. And these customers are better payers than what we expected. And even in terms of their interest vis-a-vis different offers or new services, we're seeing that the returns are much better than expected. And even the slight rebound in energy prices we're seeing today leads many of these customers to ask for fixed price rates or a mix of fixed and variable prices to protect themselves. So things are better than what we were forecasting and what we had embedded in our bidding forecast. Let me give the floor to Orazio, who will be giving us an update on waste and networks. Thank you, Kristen, and good afternoon. Let me begin with our certainties. The business plan was drafted by building on the certainties we have. When it comes to waste, we are the Italian market leaders. We have a very large and diversified number of plants, which allows us to deal with any kind of customer and with any kind of waste. What this means is that we have a very strong presence on the market, and we are capable of solving any problem our customers may have. And in fact, we don't wait for them to come to our door. We go out and search for them. This is a very strong commercial appeal we have. It has supported us over the years, and it will continue supporting our growth in the future. It's something which gives us plenty of room to further operate on the market. Secondly, you certainly remember that the Italian market is an interesting market. It's a closed market. It's marked by undercapacity when it comes to waste treatment, especially in terms of the low number of waste energies, but even landfills which are needed to close the loop. Therefore, the assets we have and our commercial abilities when it comes to customers and our ability to relate to international partners, because we always have to remember that this is a competitive market. All of this makes us very attractive competitively, and it gives us an advantage. And thanks to our competitive advantage, we were also able to develop our leadership when it comes to plastic recycling, which is another sector we are leaders in. We offer the top of the line products. We are leaders in recovering. This is a market which is constantly expanding, as we're seeing from the megatrends, which are supported by international regulatory framework, which continues to evolve towards a market characterized by recovery and by recycling. In January this year, the Single-Use Plastic Directive came into force, and that requires having 25% recycled plastic in beverage packaging beginning in 2025. Another thing I'd like to mention is that we operate in a fragmented market, and we are the market leaders. There are plenty of other smaller players, which means that step by step we can acquire new companies, which gives us plenty of room to further expand. These are our foundations, therefore. And if we move on to the following page, what we're seeing is that we have a plan with very visible targets, with an EBIT growth worth 7%, which is supported by a further increase in our market share. The volumes treated grow at a 5% rate, which means that we are expanding our market share. You'll notice that volumes will be going up 5%, CAGR will be going up 7%, and our development is supported by other axes as well. These include efficiency, services, the global waste management approach we have, which is linked to an increasing demand for circular economy models. Now, this structural growth allows us to offset the non-recurring opportunities we had seen in 2023, opportunities which were linked to the energy crisis, and which we were easily able to reabsorb during the business plan years without ever interrupting the growth in our profitability. Now, all of this growth and profitability is supported by a major amount of development capex, 700 million euros. And it's a way of reinvesting all of the financial resources we generated. As you heard from the chairman, we are using all of the financial resources generated in the waste business, and we're reinvesting them back into the business. This is a way of financing both our organic growth and our external growth. But that's not it. We also want to grow through partnerships. These are partnerships that we describe as being resilient because they are not exposed to market fluctuations. Some time ago, we had mentioned the partnership we had with Fincantieri, and we signed the deal a few days ago. We set up a new co, which will be led by Hera. And this too will allow us to manage waste in a sustainable way. And we truly are the only ones who can offer this kind of a service, because not only do we manage urban waste, but we also manage industrial waste. Let's move on to the focus of this business on the following page. All of this is, of course, supported by a very strong competitive advantage, As you can see, we have a very broad market we can serve. As you can see from the graph on the left-hand side, we have a 10% market share with plenty of room to grow. And we can grow through a number of different approaches. We can certainly make or build our plants, but we could also take over companies through M&A, since the market is very fragmented. There are over 200 small companies operating in the market. And this approach is the same one we've had over the years. And our track record proves that we can achieve this kind of growth, and we'll continue doing so. The second item is recovery, recycling. We've tried something a little different here. We compete with major players, but we have a competitive advantage given our ability to offer very diversified solutions, which means that we have a strong market share, roughly 20%, but again, there's plenty of room to grow. We have a competitive advantage and plenty of uncharted territory that we can explore, including rigid plastics or low-density PE, food. And more recently, we also started operating in carbon fiber regeneration. And we began focusing on this market niche very recently, and it's certainly something that we want to continue to expand. Now, all this is possible because when it comes to this expansion, we are guaranteed by European regulation, which requires 25% recycled PET in beverage containers beginning this year. 25%, whereas the previous figure was 11%. And of course, from this point of view, we want to be the front runners as far as these megatrends are concerned. We've invested and we will continue to invest. And on the slide here, you can see some of our plants. We have the Novara plant, for example, where we'll be doubling our size. The third topic is refers to another great experience that we've had, the ACR company, which we made the acquisition of in 2023, which is doing wonderfully well. And this transaction allowed us to add another offer to our business portfolio. We have a more than 10% market share here with a huge upside here. We have mapped over 13,000 sites which have to be remedied in Italy, and plenty of a National Recovery Fund resources have been allocated. So this is a very interesting and swift market, and these activities will have to be completed by 2027. And I also wish to mention the Brazilian partnerships that we have already signed. You can see some of them here on the screen. We have ENR Rewind, Green Thesis, and Edison. These are resilient partnerships because they aren't subject to market fluctuation. And with these partnerships, we'll be looking at remediation and treatment. And as we mentioned, the Fincantieri partnership, let me just say that this is the stream we want to continue expanding because there is a major level of value that we can achieve. Therefore, we want to continue focusing on oil and gas, along with other markets such as agri-food, home care, and pharmaceuticals. Now, With these competitive advantages in mind, and with such a fragmented and attractive market, our strategy is clear. We want to expand our market share, and that's why we will support this growth by reinvesting all of our cash flow, almost 1 billion euros, in M&A and with the organic development of our plans, by creating value with an attractive return on the invested capital, which is equal to 14% in the unregulated businesses. Let's move on to networks now. Even here, let me give you an idea of what our ID is. We're a major industrial player with a robust investment plan. We are very healthy when it comes to our infrastructure. And as far as quality goes, we are the market leaders, especially when it comes to water quality. We have been certified as being the water market leaders, as certified by the national authority last year. We have developed new technologies that can allow us to increase our ability to extract efficiencies. We have a very solid and high-quality infrastructure. And therefore, our business plan is focusing on a major development of our infrastructure. We want to continue developing. We want to go up to 4.5 billion euros RAB in 2028. With a very solid capex plan. And this development plan will allow us to improve our investments in infrastructure, making them more sustainable, with more resilient infrastructure that can deal with all the transitions we face, beginning with the energy transition. This will also lead to greater economic efficiency. And in Italy, we have a reliable regulator with a very good track record, which means that this business is very protected. And I'd like to remind you of the fact that the national authority reviewed the WACC, increasing it for 2023. And therefore, this is a business which is protected from all economic macros and from climate change. We are resilient. We have proven to be resilient, as the chairman was saying earlier, even during the most recent extreme weather events. What are our targets? Moving on to the following slide. What margins are we looking at? Margins are increasing very much, with plus 155 million euros, bringing us up to 621 million, with a 6% CAGR. This is a growth supported not just by a major growth in capex, with 1.3 billion in development capex, but it's also supported by the authority's WACC review, which is up compared to 2023. We have set some very visible targets. All of the businesses will contribute to the organic growth of margins, as you can see on the chart on the left-hand side. This growth will be supported by a major amount of capex, which are entirely recognized in the RAB without any caps as far as tariffs are concerned, so that we can then increase the margins of this business. And to all that, we also have to mention external growth, because this year, as Christian was saying, thanks to the IMAG agreement, we already have a very high visibility. 50% of their business is in networks, and therefore, with that agreement, we will enrich our presence of the business. And on the right-hand side of the page, you already have a figure which refers to how much IMAG is worth. But besides the growth in WACC, we also have efficiency, which will be improving our results. Now we have a track record which supports that. We will improve the reduction of water leakages. We'll be improving the way we treat polluted water. We want to continue to prepare our networks to deal with hydrogen blends. We want to make sure that our networks will be able to use green gases, and we'll be seeing some very positive news shortly as far as we're concerned. And the highlight here is efficiency, of course. We are always able to outperform the regulatory standards, as proven by our track record, as we've seen in recent years. Let me conclude by a focus regarding the evolution of RAB for each business. We have a growth not just in terms of investments, and also given the IMAG contribution worth 240 million. Therefore, the RAB we own will be worth 4.5 billion at the end of the business plan period, moving up from the 3.3 billion we had in 2023. Most of the RAB growth will happen at the water service, with an 800 million euro growth, up from 1.8 to 2.6 billion. This RAB is up due to the effect of the WACC, which in 2024 and 2025 will be equal to 6.1%, whereas for the remaining business plan years, we have expected 40 bips less, and therefore conservatively in water, we've already considered a reduction, which the authority still has to decide on. Therefore, we're simply dealing with the hypothesis that water will have the same effects we've seen in energy. In gas, we went up from 1.1 billion to 1.4 billion RAB. 1.4 is what we expect to achieve in 2028. This RAB is linked to 6.5% WACC in 2024 and 2025, and 5.9% of the remaining business plan years, as a consequence of the Hera review. Let me conclude by mentioning electricity. Even here, we expect to have a slight 300 million euro growth, or 100 million, from 400 million to 0.5 billion in 2028. This RAB is remunerated at 6% in 2024 and 5.6% for the remaining years of the business plan. So let me just conclude by saying that this is the safe in our business portfolio. As you know, our networks are fully regulated, and they contribute very much to growth in this business plan, giving a major level of visibility to all of the growth drivers, also including the part relating to M&A. Thank you very much, and let me give the floor over to our chairman. Thank you. We've reached the end of our presentation. Let me just conclude with a couple of remarks before I give you the floor. We began with our forecast, which shows the good position we're in, both in terms of our economic growth and in terms of the low financial lever. We also mentioned the news regarding IMEG, which we had already explained at the first few pages of the presentation. That transaction gives us good visibility regarding the M&A contribution, and it's a contribution, of course, which will not stop with IMEG. We also mentioned that our value creation strategy can be summed up with a 11% average TSR. And we also showed the good performances we had in 2024 and in the growth of our business plan targets, which will allow us to increase our dividend policy with an immediate effect and with a growth which will continue throughout the business plan till we can reach 17 cents per share in 2028. Keep in mind that this is a floor, this is a guarantee when it comes to dividends. And we still have good financial flexibility, which is, of course, something that can allow us to look into further opportunities. Thank you, and let me open up the floor for any questions that we have. I try to keep it short to leave you as much time as possible for some Q&A. I know that you were tired following the SNAM presentation yesterday. Over to you.
La prima domanda è di
Our first question is by Emanuele Oggioni, Kepler Cheuvreux.
Grazie, buonasera a tutti.
Thank you and good evening, everybody.
Alcune domande, mi limito a 3 per ora per lasciare
I
spazio
have
a
a few
tutti.
questions for you.
Sento un eco, se
There
possibile
seems to be a
toglierlo.
slight echo.
Grazie. Dunque, prima di tutto una domanda sul
So
piano.
let me begin with a question on the business plan
400 basis points
and on the
value
400
creation,
basis points growth,
migliorativa
value
rispetto
creation,
al
which is
piano precedente.
up compared to the previous business plan.
Sapendo che c'è un ritorno inferiore nelle attività regolate,
And we know that there's a lower return in regulated activities.
una slide che il main
And from
driver
what the slides
il waste
I seem to understand that the main driver is waste, especially non-regulated waste. So we have waste treatment with a return on invested capital which goes up from 10% in 2023 to almost 14% in 2028. I imagine that's the main driver, but I'd like to understand
quello che vi ha spinto insomma a migliorare questo target
what
di value creation,
pushed you to improve the value creation target,
driver, i progetti,
and what drivers,
dove
what
avete trovato più valore
projects are the ones with the most
un anno
value
fa rispetto ai
compared to a
piani
year ago, compared to the previous business plans.
Una seconda domanda invece
My second
sulla
question
slide 16
is
sul
on
crescita
slide 16,
dell'EBITDA previsto
the growth of EBITDA you expect
tutela graduale per i
for
costi
the
della tutela graduale.
STG service.
Se potete spiegarci meglio